Hey everyone, Chris here, conducting a bit of business before we begin today's episode. First things first, I want to give you guys a fair warning about the quality of today's episode. Jessica and I record these things over Skype. That hasn't been our intention as when we sat down to do these. Unfortunately, our work schedules haven't mingled enough to have us come together and record these in person like we want. Things should be clearing up pretty soon to we get back to a studio setting and give you a far greater quality product, much more akin to episode 1. So I do apologize. Today's episode has a bit of static on Jessica's end. We tried our best to get it as clear as possible. I've tried to clear it up as much as possible as myself on editing, but I can only do so much. I'm not an editing wizard, if you will. So, with that being said, please bear with us through this episode. We wanted to get one out instead of, just leaving you guys hanging. And we will be back on a far more steady schedule in the next coming weeks. So, without further ado, enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Kaiju Kingdom podcast. We are your hosts,
Jessica,
and I am Chris Eaton. So, while you were gone, and while we've been away, obviously something happened, and that was the release of the trailer. And if you're hearing now, you've all seen it by now, but for brevity's sake, we're going to go through it, and we're going to kind of chop it down a little bit, and then talk about the fallout in the last, it's been, almost 2 months now since it debuted, I believe.
Yes, but the thing is, people are still talking about it.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to get into, because it's a very interesting dichotomy compared to this time last year when the Pacific Rim trailer was out. So what we'll do is we'll go into the trailer right now, so we can give you a little listen, so you got a little something to hear, and then we'll cut back in a minute, talk about it.
Gentlemen, you are being sent in via Halo Jump. Now, I realize not all of you have had hands-on experience. And frankly, none of us have ever faced a situation quite like this one before. But I would not be asking any one of you to take this leap if I did not have complete faith in your ability to succeed. Your courage will never be more needed than it is today.
I got goosebumps. Get it every time. So, that was the trailer. Most of you probably watched it a million times by now. More realistically, probably like, 150. I like a nice round number. I was saying Elizabeth because I'm looking at the cast list right now. Jessica,
Yes.
I have yet to hear your opinion on the trailer, so let's start with you first.
I actually really, really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the quote. I love the narration. I personally really liked it. Kind of wish they revealed more of what Godzilla actually looked like, but I understand why they don't.
Yeah.
And that this trailer focuses very heavily on the humans or
Mm-hmm.
the main actors, if you will. It's great to see Malcolm in the Middle's dad and Walter White's in it.
Mm-hmm.
Bryan Cranston.
Which I think is going to be a huge pull, ironically, for
I
it.
think so. I think so because Aaron Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen is good too.
They are not, ironically, they are not known yet, but a year's time from now, they will be the talk of the town.
They will.
The irony of those two going to do another movie together as big as probably what this is going to be.
Yes. Yes, but I liked it, and I think my main concern, obviously, is how he looks, but what he sounds like. So at the end, I loved the way they did the sound mixing for that, because it almost was reminiscent, not only of what he actually sounds like, but when I was reading about Jurassic Park, the people who did the sound of what the T-Rex sounds like, they mixed like an elephant, a penguin, they mixed all these different animals together until they got what they felt was the perfect sound.
Yeah, they made a sound chimera, if you will, to put more aptly. But but the thing is with that last shot, as we all know, that's from the Comic-Con teaser trailer.
Yes, it is.
So that's technically not even new footage. The only new footage of the big guy we saw was in that brief glimpse when you're looking through what I believe is Aaron Taylor Johnson's point of view in that Halo jump, and you just see him kind of walking out of the black smoke of what is the ruins in San Francisco. So I think that gives you a better idea of what he's going to look like, because obviously that Comic-Con design has been tweaked a bit since it was first appeared about 2 years ago. But now we also know why Legendary was very up in arms about having that teaser trailer yanked off before this trailer.
Right. And also, toward the end of this trailer, you showed more of him.
Yeah.
Through the smoke, you got to see the spikes on his back.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to call it the stegosaurus side of him. He was there, and you got to kind of see a little bit of it. I really liked it because for those who know what the movie is, we're very excited.
Mm-hmm.
I actually saw that trailer again with some friends of mine, and my friend's girlfriend thought the entire time it was, because in the beginning, everybody thought it was she's like, oh, it's another World War II trailer, or a trailer about war, bombings, and everything, or maybe it's another world war that's in an alternate universe. She doesn't know. And then as you see the building, she's like, that's a little bit too modern.
Yeah.
And then she starts to recognize all these. She's like, oh my God, Walter White's in it. But then toward the end, when you find out, when she figured out who it was, for a person who's not, that into that genre, she was like, you know what? That was actually really, really cool. I think I would actually see that movie when it comes out. And a lot of my friends felt that the jump in the front with the red flares,
the Halo jump,
the Halo jump was one of the best directorial points, cinematography, and also was very well choreographed. It was very well done.
It is a brilliant shot. Because it has a I don't want to say a hyper-realistic look, but there's almost like a painting quality to it, just the way the clouds are rolling over. But it's done so well, and that's part of Gareth Edwards' strong points. He's an effects guy. He's that rare effects guy that also is a storyteller and can toggle back and forth. So, I would expect him to be personally overseeing any. He's obviously not doing the effects stuff like he did for Monsters, but I got a feeling that he's making sure that his artists are adhering to what he's seen in his head, and that's more of a maybe a realistic quality with just a dash of like a painting texture, if you will.
Yes, it's not too muted like the way, or dark like the way 300 is shot, both Rise of the Empire and the original. But it looks almost like a concept art come to life.
Yeah,
the jump, and it was I really loved the way it looked.
Oh yeah, it's sold a lot of people. I've heard, I've people who know my obscene love for Godzilla. They've actually come like, hey, did you see that trailer? I'm like, I mean, have I been living under a rock? Of course I've seen it. It's like, that actually looks really good. It doesn't look like the last one. I'm like, you mean the Matthew Broderick film? He's like, yeah, no, that was total horseshit compared to what this was. So anyway, there was a poll that came out. I don't have in front of me who did at the time. I think Yahoo News had it up though, of the big holiday trailers, that came out over the Oscar season, if you will, and what was the one thing everyone was looking forward to the most. And mind you, at the time we had Captain America come out. We had there was X-Men, Days of Future Past, which was a really good trailer. And of all the stuff, Godzilla was the top of the heap. Like, people were talking about it, and in a positive way too. It was because here was the main issue we all know, at least the fan base knows. When Warner Brothers and Legendary took this project on, not only do they have the Japanese films to contend with, which are kind of in people's minds as like, okay, they're in this day and age, they're kitschy, they have their charm. There's an understanding why people love them, but the general populace only knows the TriStar film, the Emmerich version, which does not hold up very well with a lot of people. So, obviously, Warner Brothers knew that, so that's why they gave us this, I would say, just a delightful tease of a trailer that just gets the juices flowing, if you will. And, it has people talking. I mean, most people who would have poo-pooed this kind of film right off the bat when they heard, oh, another Godzilla movie, they're like, okay, that looks interesting. And I'll give you a story real quick. Around Christmas time, I went to go see Saving Mr. Banks over at the ArcLight in Hollywood. And we were coming back, and I had to make a stop inside of Walgreens right down the street. And I had a Godzilla shirt on. So as I'm checking out, the dude at the behind the counter, he's like, oh, hey, did you see that there's a new Godzilla movie coming out? I just kind of point at my shirt, and I'm like, yeah, obviously. He's like, man, that trailer looked fucking awesome. I'm like, yes, it did, didn't it? And the large, heavy-set man of color security guard turns to us, and over here's like, what y'all talking about? And then the cashier goes to him, he's like, there's a new Godzilla movie. He's like, you like that Matthew Broderick bullshit? And he's like, no, dude, hold on a second. So he stops ringing me up, and then he pulls out his phone, which I'm pretty sure, had his boss been around, would have been a huge no. But I knew what he was doing. So he pulls up his phone, pulls up YouTube, and then pulls up the trailer and hands the guy the phone. So I'm standing there, I finish my transaction, and we're both waiting to see this guy's reaction. And he's walking, and he's like, oh, okay. Oh, shit! Oh, what the? And then he hands him back the phone. He's like, oh, god damn, man, that looks good. I want to take my girl to see that. And that right there tells me that Warner Brothers and Legendary are on the right track, because they can get just an average guy off the street who now not only wants to see this film, he's in the male demographic. That's kind of what, statistic-wise, where Godzilla falls in, but he's dragging his girlfriend to it. That right there shows you that it's working.
I was also going to say that's very true. And maybe for the girl, hopefully she'll learn to love the movie and Aaron Johnson if she's into that. And I wanted to know, were there customers behind you at the Walgreens?
Thankfully, no, because we had saw like a 10:30 showing of Saving Mr. Banks, and it's like a 2-hour, 10-minute movie, so it was like after 1 by the time we got out. So yeah, luckily no. It was just me, the registered jockey, and the security guard. The crazy cracked out lady that came in after I walked out, though, I don't know her stance on Godzilla or what she thought of the trailer. So that is for the ages only to know. But it is an interesting dichotomy, because this time last year we had Pacific Rim out, and the hardcore contingency was all about that trailer. Like, oh my god, this looks great. while the rest of the general pop was just like, why does there have to be two pilots inside the head? That seemed to be a weird contention for a lot of people. They couldn't kind of grasp that in the teaser trailer, and honestly, there's still people who can't grasp the concept today, even after seeing the film. So, while Legendary took a gamble on that, and they kind of maybe had a push, this looks like they might have more of a home run on their hands. And
yes, it's also much more straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
There's less corks and screws that kind of go with it because it's basically a creature that goes on a rampage.
Yeah.
It's very easy. While Pacific Rim, you had a couple things. There was, apocalypse, humans' instinct to survive.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the two pilots, a neurological thing. You've got cities built around, like cult and religion built around the bones. Like, there's so many more aspects to it. I mean, obviously there will be aspects there. There's going to be a story behind all the actors that are in the Godzilla film. You're going to find out what's going on with Aaron Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, Bryan Cranston. Why is he there? Who is that lady he's talking to? But those are not as important. They're not as instrumental to the fact that you've just got a very large creature that is stomping around.
Yeah. And plus,
all the other things are instrumental in Pacific Rim.
Yes, yeah. The mech portion, the monster portion. Technically it's smashing two genres together. So, I mean that was a bit of a stretch for any means. I mean, there were a lot of people that are like, oh, okay, finally, we live in this age of high tech, effects. Something like this should have been done years ago. And with Godzilla, I think the problem with the original version, which I think a lot of people will agree with, is that at the time, and Hollywood has thankfully come out of this shell of thinking. So, Godzilla, the approach to it was make it more like Jurassic Park because that's what people know, dinosaurs. So make Godzilla kind of like a dinosaur out of Jurassic Park. And the original teaser was pretty much kind of like a giant FU to Lost World, which was out at the time. Because it's the big foot coming down, smashing the T-Rex, and those teasers were very effective because they never showed anything Godzilla, and they did kind of give you an idea that they completely redesigned him, and then it turns out for the worse. But it had a lot of people sold. They were just like, oh, a big effects Godzilla film. It's like because again, the stigma of having the man in suit to audiences who have seen I think at that point Will Smith take on aliens not once but twice within a 2-year period. The practical effects have kind of grown beyond their spectrum of believability. So when they see when they saw the American one, the general thing was, okay, so it's Jurassic Park, it's not Godzilla. That's kind of how the thinking with the comic book films were in the early 2000s. If you watch the original X-Men, I mean, it's pretty much like, okay, well, Matrix was big with the leather and everything like that. We can't, translate the costumes from the comic books because no one's going to buy that. So redesign it, make it more believable. And obviously, we had the first 2 X-Men films, one better than the other. And then there was the growing pains felt until Nolan came into the game with Batman Begins, and then Marvel stepped up, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to do our own films, and this is how they're going to be done, and now that's the standard of having to do it. It's like the studios realize people want to see something closer to the source material that they would know that if you're selling us something we already know, give us enough to where it feels comfortable, but we kind of want to see you try to update it in a way that, you're going to get us to come back out and spend more money on said property. And this point, that is what they've done.
And and I understand that because with Godzilla, we already know, and especially with the blessings of Japan, we already know it is quote unquote from the original. Mm-hmm. When people saw Packrim's trailer, they were like, well, this is a ripoff of so-and-so from Japan, manga, anime. This is not an original idea. This and this, that kaiju actually looks like this kaiju from Ultraman. Then they go on and on. But with Godzilla, you can't say that. No, they cannot say, this is a knockoff of Japan's Godzilla. It's not, because it is the Godzilla.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing everyone was curious about when they finally see the trailer. You see the recognizable silhouette and everything like that. And people know that, okay, we're not getting that the shitty redesign of the 90s. We're getting a grand-scale, updated special effects Godzilla, and I think that's deep down what everyone wants. And then the big surprise was the tone of the trailer, which, unlike Pacific Rim, which was much more kind of like lighthearted and fun, they're going the Dark Knight route. This is angsty, gritty, and for this material, that's honestly what they should go with. It's what would work.
Right, and Legendary has described Pacific Rim as like human hope, instinct to survival, the fact that humans do not give up easily. It's more about the human willpower.
Yeah.
While it's the Superman. But then Godzilla is about devastation and what happens when things were to go bad.
Yeah, it pretty much they're taking the natural disaster approach, not like what Pacific Rim did with the literal on the nose disaster approach with like the storm warnings and stuff for the kaijus. Literally, they're going with what the Japanese films did for the last, I think, maybe decade or so, where instead of it being something you can control, Godzilla's more like a tornado or hurricane that passes through. You can't really do much but get out of the way and rebuild afterwards.
Yes.
So that is that teaser. Which, on a side note, which we're talking about the cast, everyone up to this point, is a new character, except for when they announced Ken Watanabe. Now, it's, obviously it's a Godzilla movie, so they have to have someone Japanese somewhere.
I was going to say, you got to throw in somebody from the motherland.
Yes, and who's actually a very good actor. He's part of the, as George and I affectionately refer to him, the Nolan players. Because, he made it in. Nolan likes him, so he keeps putting him in his films. But it was when they revealed who the hell he was that I kind of just had to take a double take at reading that news. And it took a second for me to process. So they have him playing Dr. Shirazawa from the original film. Now, they're doing an updated one. Obviously, he's not missing the eye. But in the original movie, he was the scientist that created the oxygen destroyer that ended up being the downfall of the original Godzilla. So, from what I know, or at least what I've read online, that this film is going to be a kind of a take on the original movie, but with far different undertones. So it's not a remake of any. Obviously, it's not a remake because Godzilla's destroying San Francisco. There's no. There's not. I don't think there's a huge nuclear bomb allegory in it as much as they're kind of aping off the Fukushima disaster.
Yes. Would you call this in your world? I would like to call it the reimagining, or as we would like to call it, the Incredible Hulk.
I would call it it's
not. It's the Edward Norton. Is it the reimagining, or is it more of just a not completely different take?
Okay. Okay. The analogy you're saying is because you're like the Ang Lee Hulk would be the first one, and then they kind of loosely acknowledged Ang Lee Hulk with the Incredible Hulk. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's not a remake.
No, it's not a remake.
It's not a remake, but some people would say the closest term to it is a reimagining. And when Edward Norton had to talk during the press release, like, well, how was Eric Bana involved in this one? And now it's you and Liv Tyler, where's Jennifer Connelly? He says, think of this as a reimagining, or what should have been done. Exactly.
I would say, more along the lines. I would. Here's where I would put it. This is J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. Okay, now, mind you, I did not care for J.J. Abrams' first Star Trek. Ironically, I actually loved the second one. But with the universe they created with the first one, where they could have their cake and eat it too, where they created the alternate timeline, that way, Shatner and Pine can exist, coherently or side by side, and neither side negates one's work or the other. That's what this is. This is like a split off. Like if I have if you can imagine right now, I'm in Doc Brown's lab. I flip over the chalkboard. I draw the line. Here's 1980. Here's 1955 where we were, and then here's where Biff went back, and then I draw the line, and we are now in this alternate timeline. That's where that Godzilla movie is. Except Biff is not in control, and things are much better.
We went ultra film nerd.
Yes, we did. But any reason to throw Back to the Future into anything, I'm all about. But yeah, no, that right there tells me that they're paying enough of a homage to make at least not just Godzilla, but another character from the film, probably one of the most iconic human characters in the series, like especially the ones that people would know, but they couldn't tell you his name, but except for the hardcore fan base. So that is a very interesting approach. And the only thing that needs to tie it in, which what I've been reading from, is the fact that not only is the Fukushima disaster kind of a like the kickoff point for the story lessons, but there might be some genetic engineering stuff going on in it too, which would explain Godzilla's adversaries in the film, which we have not seen yet, which are right now aptly titled Muto. So I don't know if it's because the site when it launched gave Muto as like an acronym, and it seems like they're using that term instead of Kaiju to describe maybe the mutations that tend to be larger than life. That's just my kind of understanding of it so far. Once more comes out, I could probably be completely wrong and just look like a giant asshole who's spouting off his shit. But that's what I'm getting so far.
I thought you were going to go a certain route and go, because his greatest enemy is mankind's hope. I was going to go, wow.
Yeah, no, but there's the insect creatures, which the people who have seen the toys for them have described it as kind of like a cross between Megaguirus from the Millennium series with the giant dragonfly,
mm-hmm. Yes,
and with legs. So it's almost like an Ultraman monster in many ways. It sounds like it's like a weird hodgepodge. But I guess we won't know until the next trailer comes out. Which last week there was a rumor. It's like, it's gonna come out on the 14th, so be ready. I'm like, that's not gonna happen. And lo and behold, the 14th came, nothing came, and Toy Fair happened. This actually ended today, and that was people were like, oh, okay, well, we're gonna see the toys. People got to see the toys, but there was an embargo, and they said, okay, March. Which tells me my original theory of the next trailer will be on 300 seems to be apt. Because that's the next Legendary film that's coming out.
Right. No, and I was really excited. When we were talking about Toy Fair, I was trying to follow as much of the news as I can, but I had kind of my own things that I needed to do, but I was trying to follow as much as I can, other than all the other amazing toys that we saw. Godzilla-wise, you and I saw some that we really liked.
Yes. So, are you talking about the Neca line?
Yes.
Okay. So, let's get into this. All right. So, at Toy Fair, we know who. Okay. Well, let me rephrase this. If you listen to the last podcast, and I went on that tirade at the end about how Legendary dropped the ball with the merchandising for Pacific Rim.
Oh, that was my favorite.
Yeah.
When you went on, I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, so, I went on a giant nerd tirade that only a man of my girth can go on. That Legendary really dropped the ball. And the part of the thing was because, the only people making Pacific Rim merchandise was Neca. They were the only ones that had the license. Yes. It's like, this should have been bigger. Like, other companies should have had the license. Now, mind you, Neca did a great job. I just picked up the Trespasser figure from the Wave 3. It's a fantastic figure, and they've actually enlarged the Kaijus in the series. So they reissued Knife Head in a larger scale with battle damage. So all the Jaegers are actually smaller than the Kaijus now. That when you match them up. So Besides the fact, and not only that, but when these figures hit, they're in such a limited run that the secondary market goes skyrocketing when they come out. I know when I went to pick up my my Trespasser figure, I was like, the guy told me I was like one of like 80 people that day asking for these things. And they had shipped the Kaijus and the Jaegers in two separate orders. So the Jaegers haven't hit shelves yet, as far as I know. They might have today. Which means I need to get out Saturday and get my Coyote Tango and my Cherno Alpha before I have to pay like $60 a pop for them. Because that's how much Wave 1's going for now. They're going between like $50 to $60 a piece. And it's kind of ridiculous. But, hey, good on people who on the secondary market who managed to snag them up. But, that being said, Warner Brothers and Legendary are not going that route with Godzilla. They seem to have a little more faith in Godzilla and have licensed the holy shit out of it. So, not only as Neca, who we're going to talk about in 1 second, has license, so does Jakks Pacific, Sideshow Collectibles, and Bandai, which is a given because I think contractually they have to put out anything Godzilla at any moment. So it's like, hey, there's no Godzilla movie. They have first dibs. They are the Halliburton of Toho and Toei. So anything that comes that way, like Power Rangers wise or Godzilla wise, they're like, we got this. Don't worry about it. So Neca though pulls an incredible fast one that I didn't see coming. So they have the movie line coming out, which they showed off to people, but no one was allowed to photograph. So the toys were there. Just any reporter got to see them in person, and they're embargoed until March, when I guess we'll start seeing that stuff come out, which means we got to wait for the trailer. But in the meantime, they announced something else that completely threw off me off guard and was a pleasant surprise. Not only do they have the rights to the new film, they have the rights to the classic films, which means we're going to get not only Godzilla for 2014, we're getting past Japanese Godzillas, and they're going to start off with the 94 Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, which makes sense because that movie turns 20 years old this year, if you can believe that. So articulation.
Yes. So for those who don't know, points of articulation are joints on a toy or figure where it moves, much like on a human body. And the higher number of articulation, the more difficult it is to design and make said toy. And usually, depending on manufacturer, some of them are more expensive. So I always prefer my toys to have more points of articulation. And what amazed me about the Neca Godzilla was it had 30 points, or will have, hopefully, pending seeing license approval, 30 points of articulation, which is a lot.
Which, especially considering that up until now, especially for the high-end SH figure arts not standing, because I don't consider those mass releases, because that's for the specialty market. That's for if you got money to burn, you buy those figures. But just in general, like what Bandai's done, they've only ever really given us soft vinyl figures that have maybe like 8 points of articulation. They're pretty much, toys that if you're a kid, you just smash them together. So this is pretty much the first time, at least American, stateside-wise, we're getting a highly detailed and affordable, awesome Godzilla figure.
Yes, which is almost unheard of. So people line up.
Yes, buy as many of these as you can, because if this one sells well and it comes out in July, they have the Godzilla from Godzilla 1985 due next, which is actually a very interesting suit to do, because he's kind of like more, I like to call it the kind of bulldog look, where he's kind of got more of a flat face. Not the elongated snout from like the 90s that everyone kind of knows. So, and he's much less bulky too, but he's got like a big fat tail. So if that figure done right could be a completely awesome figure, even though it's from probably even though it was from the first Godzilla movie I've seen, it's come to be one of the lesser Godzilla movies I enjoy, ironically. Mostly because it's just kind of like a rehash of the first film. But, so there's that. No other Kaiju are known at the moment. I do believe that the gentleman handling the Neca Twitter did say, though, that depending on how the line does, they do have the licenses for some of the other monsters. So if, hey, you start picking up a bunch of these, we could get a Destroyer, we could get a King Caesar, we could get an Anguillus, we can get, everything across the board. So, come July, buy the crap out of these things.
Yes, and it's great because July is also Comic-Con month.
It is.
So it's going to be a madhouse.
Oh, God, I can't wait.
And I do know that you and I saw another one for those who care more about size.
Oh, yes.
Of an issue.
The Jakks Pacific figure.
That one, yes. And I know that you guys have seen the toys in Target and Toys R Us. They are the manufacturers that make an unusually large Man of Steel, Christian Bale Dark Knight and Darth Vader.
I believe there's a
And
Red
also
Ranger in
Power
there.
Ranger.
Yeah, there's a
Yes,
Power Ranger
there's a
as well.
Red Ranger. It's the one where it's like almost as big as your, like slightly bigger than your child,
Yeah.
but yet you feel it's not tall enough as an adult.
Yes, as my as my buddy and co-host George said, he's like, these are the toys you get your child that has social developmental problems. And as he put it, it's like these are for the kids that don't want to go outside and play, and thus create the imaginary friend with their doll.
Yes, and if you remember from those from the 90s, the My Size Barbie and My Buddy.
Oh my God, I love My Buddy. My buddy, my buddy, my buddy and me. And then there was Kid Skipper, his sister. They put those two, and they threw those two commercials together because they were too lazy to market them separately. They're just like, screw it. The kids are watching whatever, they're watching, Inhumanoids or My Little Pony at the same time. Who gives a crap? Throw them all together.
Yes, and so these are for those who feel like those are too plain, and those two, that those two figures look too much like your friends at school.
Yeah.
Then Jax is the manufacturer for you.
Which I'm hoping it'll be very interesting because they're doing the 2014 design. That's the only thing they're making is just a big ass Godzilla. And the closest we got to that is in the occasional kit that's been released in the past couple of years, or when Trendmasters back in the day did the '98 movie, and they came out with that huge American Godzilla figure, which I have, but sadly the tail broke on it, so I got to kind of fix them.
I cannot believe you even have that.
It was a Christmas present, and you know what?
Okay.
Figure-wise, it's actually a really cool figure.
It is a cool figure, but because of the movie, that atrocity is not allowed to live in my home.
Now, here's the thing. For a while that was. And then, when Godzilla Final Wars came out, it changed everything. Canon-wise, as they call him now, Zilla is a separate creature, so I can accept him in my house. I actually have a scale Trendmaster figure of that one sitting on top with my Bandais because he's now part of the roster. So I have grown to accept him. He's still the redheaded stepchild, but now that he's not officially Godzilla, he's a separate monster. I'm completely cool with it. In fact, that has taken away a lot of the sting of the Broderick film, because now I can just look at it. It's like, oh, okay, so Rodan got his own film, Mothra got her own film, Zilla got his own film, and then they worked him into the continuity.
That is true. That's true. And for those who disagree, feel free to comment on any one of our social networks later, and you can tell Chris what you
tell me to
feel.
go suck it. It's like It's like, dear ass face, how dare you?
Or you know what? You may have a surprising number of supporters. It's like, dude, I feel you. Also, I can never admit that I spent all that money in shame, so I must keep it in my home.
I still have all the stuff I took because I was a spry 14-year-old Chris Eaton was all about that movie when it was coming out, and I took everything. I gobbled up everything that came out that way, whether it was the movie, it was movie related, or all the Godzilla tie-in stuff. Everything that came my way, I took it. So, and I still have all that stuff. It's boxed up. Not a lot of it's on display, but I still have it. I even have the ice cream container. I ate the Godzilla, chocolate strawberry swirl I ate out of. I washed it out and I kept it, and it actually holds up pretty well. It never got really dinged up or anything. So yeah, so there's going to be a big 42-inch Godzilla that's going to come out. It's going to retail, I think, only for like $50, which is astonishing considering the size you're going to get this thing for. So you can have the big fat, they're calling him the Cankle Godzilla from the toy designs they got released so far. Because his kind of feet and he's got the sauropod feet where his foot and his ankle kind of like meld together as one thing. But you can have this big, huge Godzilla sitting in your room or sitting in your living room, staring at you when you walk through the door at night when it's just dead dark and you think someone's in there, but it's just Godzilla waiting to comfort you with his arms.
Yes. Now, if they can only make like a 60-inch plush version for all of us,
would not doubt that's coming. Hey, Ty put out the Beanie Baby ones, which I'm not ashamed to say that I own.
I also do.
Yes. They can do a big plushie Godzilla. In fact, I think whoever has the license right now, I forgot at the top of my head, but it has that standard. I think they made the chest pieces and made the ornaments, but they came out with a line of plushies as well. They were actually fairly big. There was a GMK Godzilla plushie that came out, and he's like, I think like 18 inches, and he's pretty big. Like you can use this thing as like a huggable pillow at night. That's how big he is. And I've seen him on the convention circuits, but just the problem is it's like they're always want like $40, and deep down, as much as I would love to buy him, there's a part of me that says you're not going to spend $40 on a plush. You still have Bandai figures you need to finish up before you get this, and so I always walk away.
No, plushies are one part of my heart and soul. And you know what? Worst comes to worst, there is Etsy. Etsy is amazing. You can find all kinds of amazing stuff on there. But I'm talking like a 60-inch, like those gigantic teddy bears at Costco.
Yes.
I bet see like a 2014 Godzilla in that version in my nearby Costco.
Oh, I can tell you a story about those bears too. Okay, real quick, because I work for the company. I don't work in a store. I don't work in a store. I work in an off-site kind of place. So all the merchandise that comes into your Costco, I'm the guy that handles it. Not literally. I'm not opening up and putting my fingers in anything. But when they come in, I'm the guy that unloads them, and then separates them to go to their respective stores. Back in July, we got those bears in, and there was not only the big teddy bear one, we got the big panda bear ones too.
Yes.
So they came 8 in a box. And mind you, these things are the size of a small, obese child of about 5 years old. And, they're all just crushed in with each other. And the boxes are about 4.5 foot tall. And I'm a 6 foot person, so I was one of the few people that could actually kind of reach in and grab these things without having to tear the boxes open. And we got 40 pallets of these things that came in. And they had to be unloaded by midday, so I walk in at 9 a.m. and I have to lunch at 1 o'clock to unload half these things. So I look like a dude on a construction site hauling bags of sand over my shoulder when I'm yanking out these giant, massive bears and throwing them over my shoulder. And then I'm almost like a wrestler power bombing them or like shooting them like a basketball into the boxes to be sorted and put away. Now, mind you, all the merchandise was handled with care. So if anybody, feels free to complain, they're big plushy bears. There was nothing to be cut on, and I wore gloves. So don't worry about any of my germs getting on any of your stuff. But I did look like I got tackled by about I don't want to say a gang of dogs. I want to say a whole pound of dogs because of all the hair that came off on these things. I looked like an overweight Chewbacca. That's what I looked like at the end of the day.
No, dude, I love them. I never got one. I should have gotten one when I had the chance. But there's a picture my friend took of me hugging one.
It's probably bigger than you, wasn't it?
It was. I would like to think that it is 3 inches shorter than me. However, other people who have seen the pictures, they feel it is still up to debate.
Well,
that we are either the same height or just slightly taller.
Well, I'll tell you this, because they come in a sitting position, but when you
yes, they come in a sitting position. We try to stand the teddy bear up.
Yeah,
and I was
when he stands up, he comes to my chest, like almost to my neck. So he's almost 4.5 foot tall.
Yeah, no, I'm 5 feet 2.
Yeah. So
it's
pretty much as big as you, and I wouldn't doubt it outweighs you by like 20 pounds too, because they're light, but they're not that light. It's just a mass amount of of synthetic fiber in these things, and that's because they're hypoallergenic too. So that way your kids ain't going nuts around. Their eyes aren't watering when you give them to them for Christmas time.
Oh, I didn't know. That's really great, and they were at a great. I remember trying to lift one from a box, and I could feel the childhood fear of falling into the box, but no one sees you.
And then you just the hand, like at the end of Terminator 2, going up as you're being swallowed by just a brown mass of plush as it just slowly sinks in. If you're not giving the thumbs up, you're screaming for help. As you open up, it's just like an eye and a nose going in, just like muffling you.
See, that would be my dream a year from now if I could be in a box with a 4.5 foot tall Godzilla just all around me.
I wouldn't doubt that there's got to be something on the books for that already. So I wouldn't doubt that that someone's thinking of that, or at least putting it into some sort of motion. If worst comes to worst, you can maybe try to find like someone to make it the skin at Esty, and then take it to a Build-A-Bear and just put it under that stuffer thing, and just fill the shit out of it.
Yes, people do it for My Little Pony. So they have like 4 feet tall, 5 feet tall My Little Ponies on Etsy.
Oh my god, yeah, but they're an insane price though because they're actually original art pieces too. So
Yeah, and they are quite expensive.
don't ask me how I know that.
But it would be worth it for a large Godzilla.
Yes. On that note, Sideshow Collectibles is going to do a line of statues. No word on if they're doing the classic series or not. We're at least getting a couple of the new movie. And then Bandai, who I've been, at least Bandai America, who I've been very vocal of because of their just laissez-faire kind of approach to the line. It will be making stuff too. Now, mind you, this is the company that has been releasing. They initially released the Godzilla Island reissues from the early 2000s to American stores. So at the time they were putting them out at Toys R Us, KB's, and like collector stores, so comic book stores and stuff like that. All they were at the time repaints of the molds from Japan. So for those who don't collect, which I can't imagine anybody that listens to this doesn't collect, the Bandai has been like the de facto company that has made mainstream Godzilla toys forever. And in the American market, they've always gone at a high price because kind of like Beanie Babies, after they make so many, they stop and you have to track down what's out there. So pretty much it's all been importers through secondhand. So every time you went to a Comic-Con or back in the day when you order through a catalog that someone would send you, like Creature Feature Productions or something like that, those were the only ways you can get them, and you would pay a premium because somebody had to go to Japan or know someone in Japan, go to the local store, buy these things up, and then bring them back over here. So what would be a $10 figure over there was now a $35 figure over here. Now, Bandai finally said, well, we could do this, but the problem was at the time there really wasn't anything Godzilla to support, so they're like, okay, well, it's got to be kind of a secondary market thing. And Bandai Japan at the time had reissued a lot of the characters that hadn't been issued in a while, and they were in a smaller 6-inch scale, and Bandai America pretty much like, okay, we'll take these and put them in a box instead of putting a tag on them. And that has been the way they've been doing it for the last, I want to say almost like 8 years since this line came out. And I think the last year and a half, they finally start putting some effort, and I put quotation marks in that saying, because they did an original sculpt of King Caesar, and they did a Godzilla 54, which actually was a really, I don't know, I'll take that back. They did a Godzilla 2000 too, which were actually really well done. I actually bought them to go along with my Japanese ones. In fact, I prefer the American 54 to my Japanese 54 figure. I'm hoping everyone's keeping up with the lingo, or they already know the lingo what I'm talking about. So, last year they came out with a series of super deformed figures, which are the tiny little guys with the super big heads.
Yes, or chibis.
Chibis, yeah. I think that's the new name for them now. They used to be super deformed when I was a young lad. Now they're chibis. So they have the chibi set, which for some god-awful reason they broke into 3 sets. So you can buy the big set for $20 at Toys R Us, which is like all 8 figures, or you could spend $6 on 2 figures, or you could spend $3 on 1 figure. Which I'm just like, why? Just sell the fucking set. That's all you have to do. I mean, it's not like anybody who's going to come in to buy these are be like, well, I want Godzilla and Mothra, but fuck Destroyer. I don't want him. It's like, no, they're going to want all of them. In fact, they're going to ask you for more. So I don't understand the delving out. That's something that Bandai America has always kind of given me a headache about. And they have jumped on the art figure bandwagon. So they have those real kind of graffiti graphic design Godzilla figures. They got a Godzilla and a Mecha Godzilla, and I think they got an Anguila's coming out, which actually looks pretty cool. But hopefully, with the new movie coming out, they're obviously going to be doing a line out of that. They're going to stop just reissuing the figures that they keep putting out in new boxes and give us maybe something newer to kind of bite into. That's just my hope, because they haven't really announced really what they're doing with the line yet. And that has been Chris bitching for the last 5 minutes. I'll let you talk, Jessica.
No, it's okay. I think we always like to hear what other Godzilla lovers want or don't want or wish they had or wish they didn't have. Or the greatest ones is like, I don't understand their math when they break up figures to buy and not buy. But I bet you there is somebody out there, and I can't blame them, who's like, no, just want Mothra. For some reason, I was an entomology student, and I just want the other ones. They were like, no, screw herpetology. I don't like lizards. But, maybe there is someone out there, but I do agree most people who are collectors prefer a certain set or individual, but mostly sets.
Yeah.
Because I myself, sometimes I just want one dude out of the three, but because it's a set, I feel the need to just get all of them. Then I trick myself into thinking, hey, if I just get the set, I just sell the one that I don't want, and then I just never get around to doing that.
I actually did that with, I bought the Bandai Godzilla Titanosaurus set, and I had bought the original issue of Titanosaurus, and so I'm sitting here with two Titanosauruses. They're just one's a different color scheme. And I was like, let me look what this is going for on eBay. And it turns out Titanosaurus was going for a shit ton of money, either version. So I'm like, okay, since I got an extra one, I will part with this. But I got to keep one somewhere. The only reason I bought it too was because I wanted the mold of that suit from Godzilla, from Mecha Godzilla, which is the same one from Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla, which is like my favorite suit. And the only other way to get that was in that giant box set that they put out, which was like $400, which I did not have at the time.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. And while we were talking, it's like things that come out in series. And we know that other than in Toy Fair, the other big news was Pac Rim.
Yes.
And so the moment I saw it, I tagged you on my Facebook post. And it was Cherno Alpha.
Oh, yes.
And I was so excited about until I started looking for the kaijus. And then you call it the Chris Eaton rant or bitching. Then I went into an entire internal rant in which I know, because I have done it out loud verbally, in which all my friends just stop listening halfway through.
They just kind of like their eyes roll back into their head like a shark.
They
just kind of zone out.
They zone out. But before I get to that, Cherno Alpha is out. And what can you tell us about the physical nature of it?
The physical nature of that Cherno Alpha, he's part of the line that's out with Trespasser and the reissued Knife Head right now. So they haven't. As far as I know, Neca has either just shipped him or they haven't shipped him yet. They're doing something weird with this line because the last two lines they shipped both Jaegers and the one Kaiju that came in the set all together. So when you got your box of like 10 figures, you got like 3 of each or something like that. So this time they only sent 2 kaijus in a box because I was asking my dealer like, hey, where's the Jaegers at? He's like, yeah, they didn't send them, dude. Like nobody has them yet. So you got the Trespasser and you got battle damage giant knife head. Now the finished stuff of Cherno and Coyote Tango, which had just recently hit the net. Those figures look beautiful, and they're anything like Striker Eureka or Gypsy and Crimson Typhoon. They're going to be awesome. And I've been, as much as you've been waiting for Cherno, I've been waiting for Coyote Tango because I really like the design on it. And plus, that's Idris Elba's mech, so you just know it's full of badassery.
It is. But for me, it was, where's my Onibaba? I don't care if that cute little lobster claw bastard comes in plush version, vinyl version, die cast, a hood ornament, or, somebody's, T-shirt that's not from Etsy. Where is this one? Because it's not just a throwaway one. It's the one that we saw Mako go through. And I understand it's, Kaiju 1, due to its stage. But it's unique. I know why everybody likes Knife Head. I mean, let's be honest. People have this weird obsession with sharks. That dude looks like a shark.
It looks like a goblin shark, yeah.
It does. It looks like a goblin shark. But yet, Onibaba, I think I personally love the way our theropods look. So I like crabs. I like lobsters. I like scorpions. and tarantulas. I have friends who can't eat lobster and crab because they're like, it freaking looks like a spider and a scorpion on my plate, just very large. But I think it could be just not just fan reaction, but physical nature of what it looks like, that people just don't like it or they don't have a thirst for it. But I have been waiting for that one.
Well, here's the thing, because I didn't know if you knew who was coming, which kaiju was coming in this line. So I didn't know if you knew that the Trespasser was in this line or not. So I'm taking it you didn't.
I did not. Okay. I should have kept better with Toy Fair, but this year was just, I've had a long start to the new year already.
Yeah. Well, so the reveals at Toy Fair for NECA on the Pacific Rim lines, they're continuing it. Not only did they issue a larger scale knife head along with Trespasser,
yes,
they finally announced the 18-inch knife head figure that will go along with your 18-inch Gypsy Danger.
Yes.
That comes out, I believe, in May, and it's going to be about $90 retail, so expect to pay like maybe $120, $125 for it. But it's I saw the prototype at Comic-Con last year. It is a huge goddamn figure, and it is just going to be like a big bulk of plastic of awesome to put against your Gypsy. Now, in that same wave, they did announce the next 18-inch figure will be Cherno, and part of it I think is because the head designer at NECA likes Cherno the most. So they're like, yeah, we're going to do Cherno next. So you have that to look forward to. I think that's either in August or September. And they did say that the next wave, Series 4, is only going to be 2 kaijus. They're not doing any other...
yes, but they didn't announce what kaiju.
They didn't announce which one yet. My gut feeling is that they're going to go with... why am I blanking on her name right now? It was Leatherback and Raiju, wasn't it?
Yes.
Raiju, yeah. So I got a feeling that one will be in the line. Now they can either do Slatner, the big bad at the end, or more than likely they would do Onibaba, because the other two, I think Raiju was the wrong one. No, what was the Otachi? That's what it was. Otachi was the big one. So Otachi, which was the bat one that Gypsy fights, that more likely will probably be it. This is just me guessing, but part of me thinks that they might go with Onibaba because it's visually different from all the other kaijus out there. Because when you put Knife Head and Trespasser next to each other, it's literally like, okay, they took one body, put a knife on one end, and took another body and put a head on it. It goes along with the cloning motif of the kaijus. And they already put out a Leatherback, so that was the other more unique one. So if they want to go with something outside of having the 4 arms and just the weapon head, Onibaba would be the way to go. And plus, that was, as you said, one of the most iconic scenes in the whole film. So why would you not have that figure?
Exactly. Although I would love to see a baby kaiju come out and have we can get a little tiny version of Ron Perlman,
just popping out
Hannibal Jack. Yes, and then that would be wonderful. And then when you somehow either turn off the light, well, I don't want to glow in the dark, but you can have it illuminate.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. You would have a baby kaiju that just squeezes out.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised they don't put the fluorescent painting on the outlines of the blood.
Right.
I'm gonna have to talk to those guys at WonderCon if they're there. Remind me to hit these guys up because I got a feeling they will be at WonderCon. If not, they definitely will be at Comic-Con. So we can go bug them. Yes,
we will go and find them. And if not, there's always employees on the floor with their name tags. Yes. Look at the name tags, and then you will find them. I thought you were actually going to say because the head of the people was a Russian. Then that's why he wanted Cherno Alpha. Because I was like, that would explain a lot. But, if it's his favorite, that also makes sense.
Well, hey, everyone has their favorite. My favorite was Stryker, and then after that, just look-wise, was the brief glimpse of Tactic Ronin we got to see. So that's part of me was hoping that they would make that a figure. So I don't know. Maybe hopefully if they do it, they may do it as like a convention exclusive or something. But I want that figure. If they're going to end the Jaegers, get to end with that one because that one's got kind of like a cult following around it, just design-wise.
Right. And then, a dream of mine would be if they could do all the ones that they originally wanted in the film.
Oh yeah,
but
that's
they
true.
couldn't do, along with the Dai Kaiju and the other kaijus that they had planned, or at least concept arted out, or at least scripted, but they couldn't do. I mean, my favorite is still Striker Eureka. For various reasons, people believe it is Crimson Typhoon, but
That's a
but
little bit
it's
racist,
Striker
actually.
Eureka. It is Striker Eureka. I remember, like, I had friends who would watch that movie and be like, Jess, your people, what is happening? Like, I was like, no, but
You're more about the hunky
no, but
Australians.
yes, no, I do. I loved it because it was streamlined. It was the fastest. I just loved the way that it looked. But for unique purposes, I like Turner Alpha because I like the bulkiness look of it.
The big, which
And yeah,
if you really look at
yeah,
it, it's actually because the eyes and stuff. I believe that the headlights are on the side are supposed to be like its eyes, and like the core body is supposed to be its face, and it's wearing like a big hat where you know.
yes, and it looks like the plants that they had in Russia.
Yeah, it looks like a walk, literally like it's a stack for a nuclear power plant on legs.
Yes, it is. It is. But for Crimson Typhoon, I like the uniqueness of the third arm. And I mean, I don't know why they didn't do this with any other country. Why does China have the one with triplets? Why did they break the one child rule? I don't know. But they did the triplets, which I thought was unique because I didn't see. I mean, obviously not until trailer and further, digging Google Journey style that there was a third arm, the cloud formation.
Yeah.
Which was really
Well,
interesting.
they broke the third. They broke the one child rule because it was 3 boys, and we all know how they feel about boys. So that was like super lucky for like whatever Chinese family had them. So they were probably showered with wealth before their children were taken away to be turned into pilots.
That's true. But yeah, no, I mean, that was what I looked forward to for the Toy Fair line. And there's so many amazing articles on it. I was trying to keep up with them over the weekend, but, there was just a lot of things. We were friends and people were moving. So obviously we were all moving. So I was a little bit busy,
Yeah,
but
I was busy too.
I was trying to keep up. Oh, and it was Valentine's Day weekend for all those who celebrated or cared. So it was really busy, but I tried to keep up through feeds and pop-ups and everything. And so Churnal was the first thing I saw among other DC toys, obviously. But when I saw the Churnal, I was like, tag Chris Eaton. And my friends are like, don't have time to send me an email, but you have time to tag your friend. And I was like, this takes precedence.
It does take precedence because part of it is if you don't get those figures in the next like 4 weeks, it's going to be a pain in the ass to get them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I get
Very
paid
true.
Friday. I will be marching down to my local collector show, and I will be picking those bastards up. So I can probably, because the only one I don't own right now, because I refused to buy the Battle Damaged Gypsy because I was taking a moral stance against reissuing me something with a different paint job. But I need to get Leatherback still, and they've released at least I found a dealer that was selling it cheaper just to get Leatherback and Battle Damaged Gypsy. So because the dealers I'm dealing with, they want like $60 for Leatherback now. I'm like, that is goddamn ridiculous. And I found a dude. He's like, I'll give you the 2-pack for $35. I'm like, I'll be back next week. So I might have Battle Damaged Gypsy. I can make that purchase because I could say, okay, well, this way I'm not technically forking out too much money for a reissue, and I'm getting what I want out of it with Leatherback. And if worse came to worse, I can always sell off Battle Damaged Gypsy down the line.
Right. The sucker in me still falls for it, even though I'm just like you. Yeah. I'm like, what? This is the exact same Batman, but now he's Batman Brown, and somehow that's stealth mode.
Yeah.
Why? Why would that happen? I'll look at 2, I'm like, must have.
Just a real quick plug. If you go listen to the other podcast I do over on the Realmcast, we just put up an episode where we're talking about Toy Fair, and the manhandling that Mattel is doing with their DC line right now, and they're reissuing their DC subscription, or actually they're ending their DC subscription line because not enough people subscribe to it, and and I'm putting in air quotation, a send-off to the line is they're redoing the old Kenner Superpower figures, which are the Super Friends figures. which back in the day, Kenner, who was doing the Star Wars figures, put out DC Heroes, and they did a wide swath of them. So what Mattel's doing is they're taking a bunch of figures they got laying around that are really well done figures. They're sculpted by the Four Horsemen. If you don't know who they are, go look them up. They reinvented He-Man. And they're giving them the old Kenner paint jobs, and they're throwing them into a crappy carton and putting them out. It's like, here, you can buy these as a thank you for supporting our shitty line over the last, 4 years. So you can hear us rant and rave about the trials of and tribulations of having to buy reissues.
Right. No, I completely know what you mean. And then actually, for those who don't know, Toy Fair was, or currently is, I'm not so sure, I haven't subscribed to things in a while. Everything for me is online. Mm-hmm. Certain magazines I still subscribe. Toy Fair was like the Wizard magazine of toys.
Sadly, Toy Fair no longer exists.
Yeah, Toy Fair no longer exists, if I'm correct.
The actual Toy Fair itself still goes on, which were two completely unrelated things.
Yes. So for those who are confused, not the same thing, but Toy Fair takes place in New York every year.
Yes, around this time, around Thanksgiving or Valentine's Day weekend.
Yes, and so Toy Fair is usually where it's for those who are less into, comics, or you're more into collectibles. That would be the fair or the convention, however you want to see. That's the one you want to pay attention to.
Actually a trade show, much like E3. And so there's nothing actually to buy there. It's a lot of going.
It's all looking.
And you have to either be press or industry to get in. So,
yes.
Sadly, that's we're Jessica and I are in the industry to go. It's just the problem is it's on the other side of the country and thus expensive to go because it's in New York.
Yes.
So the irony of us living in the greater LA area, it's just even sweeter on top of that because we live in one of the third most expensive places in the world. And we are not living it, lavishly either. So any of you are thinking that. So
no. Picture a 300 square foot apartment, but just stacked with collectibles.
Yeah, pretty much. That's about right.
No, I was gonna say these are the type of people who are like, I can't afford rent and food, but let's have Onibaba for $180.
Exactly. That's
the type.
And be honest, how many places on SD have you looked for a plush Onibaba?
Oh my God, a lot. A lot. And you can actually get it commissioned, but I don't know when it'll come.
Yeah.
I don't know if the person will do it.
Therein lies the issue with SD. It's a double-edged sword, if you will.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it, I think it depends, but I do find a couple of good things on there. I found a T-shirt that was drawn, and I've shown you because again, you were tagged on it, and I was actually given it as a Christmas present from one of my closest friends. But it's a My Little Kaiju, but it's drawn in the animation style of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic.
Yes.
But it's got Mothra and Godzilla, and it has everyone on it. And I love it, and I love that shirt a lot. But Etsy does have its wonderful things. It's just, it's you got to scour through it. You got to kind of really look through.
It's like panning for gold. You have to do a lot of sifting and sleushing.
Yes. So I was kind of like, oh my goodness. But yeah, and Toy Fair around this time, everyone just go online and look at pictures. And obviously, if there's an embargo, you'll see it eventually because, press doesn't want to get in trouble either.
Oh, no, they don't.
So that's something you glue yourself online for.
And believe me, we are T-minus, let's see, this is the third week of February. So we are, I believe 300, Rise of the Empire, comes out the 7th. Yeah, it does, because that's the same day Wes Henderson's movie comes out, which, ask me which one I'm looking forward to more. And, that, I believe, is when we will see the second trailer, which will probably give us a lot more of the film. It won't be so teasery. It'll actually be a legit trailer, because then it's only 2 months away from release date at that point.
Right. And so I really like how they schedule trailers with things that are being released. Some of them I feel like are not... They don't give it enough time, or they give it too much time, like coming out next year. I'm like, what? It's January. And then they're like, 2015. I'm like, please, no. But I really feel like they should do more trailers for things that are being released. And earlier, actually, off the books, Chris and I were talking about Godzilla being re-released.
Yeah.
And Chris was the one who had the information. I'm very familiar with the channel that the festival is associated with, which is TCM, Turner Classic Movies. For those who have cable, it is an amazing channel. We're youngins. We're young people. But yet I am obsessed with TV Land and TCM because it replays all these wonderful classic shows
off,
that I really like.
Gilligan's Island is timeless. All right.
It is
I
timeless.
mourned deeply at the passing of the professor a couple of weeks ago. I literally laid down a rose, and then I gave myself a reprieve about that tragic 3-hour tour. But no, with all seriousness, I love Gilligan's Island. I lived on a healthy diet growing up since I didn't have cable of whatever was reran on Fox, which was a lot of Three's Company and a lot of like the classic Adam West Batman and a lot of Happy Days. So those are all part of my lexicon of growing up. Gilligan's Island holds a very special place with me. So whenever I'm TV Land, I got a chance to watch TV Land, I'm glued to it and whatever the hell they got going for me. And a lot of it is actually stuff that was new when I was a child, like Roseanne and stuff, which I know like the back of my hand. So it is a magnificent channel. And Turner Classic Movies pretty much became what AMC was back in the day before they just became like we're the hip network that shows Demolition Man 400 times a week.
Yes, and the one that put Walking Dead on the map.
Yes, it did.
So, but TCM, as Chris was saying, was showing a like retouch footage, like Japanese version, not the American cut of the original Godzilla. They're going to show it in Hollywood in April during a festival. However, Chris has also cited that they are going to several other cities, in which he looked at what those cities were. And I felt that they were cities that were more TCM friendly.
Yeah. Okay. So I got the full press release because this literally came out like 2 hours before we sat down to record. So Rialto Pictures, who has they have the rights to the original Godzilla film. They back in 2004 when the 50th anniversary hit. They actually did this once already. They recut a new master of the original non Raymond Burr. Hold on, let me reword it. It was the original cut of the film, the original 98-minute cut that was all Japanese actors. It was subtitled, and it was one that had not really ever been seen theatrically stateside in almost literally 48 years prior to that. So they went out on tour for the 50th anniversary because ironically for the 50th anniversary there wasn't much of a hubbub stateside for it as there was in Japan. The biggest part of that was the biggest thing stateside we got was the premiere for Final Wars out here, which I was lucky enough to get into. That'll be another podcast for another day. But around the time though, they ran this print around. It's cool because for many people this was the first time to ever see that. It hadn't even been released on DVD at that point. So they licensed the DVD to Classic Media, who put out a pretty good set. And then about a year and a half ago, pardon me, Criterion got a hold of it and did their own version. So if you're like me, you own both, but the Criterion Strike is a far better print. And you've seen the original movie, but there is something grand to seeing it on a big screen. So Rialto's going to go back for the 60th anniversary, which is this year. They're going to debut it, as Jessica said, at the TMC Classic Film Festival in Hollywood. That's where, if you're on the West Coast, that's pretty much where you're the only place at the moment you're going to be able to see it. And then a week later, they're going to take it over to the New York Film Forum for a week run. And then it's going to go on tour from that. So after New York, it's going to hit Santa Fe, New Mexico from April 25th to May 1st. And then one of my most favorite cities in the world, Portland, Oregon. We'll get it from the 2nd to the 5th, so it's going to be a weekend run there. And then they're going to do a simultaneous run up in Seattle, May 2nd to May 8th. So that's getting a whole week run. And then a week after that, or 2 weeks after that, literally, so they're taking a break in between the release of the American film, and then once the hype dies down, they're taking it to Houston, Texas, And then it's going to have a day run in Lexington, Kentucky, and then a one-day run in Columbus, Ohio in July, which is actually during Comic-Con. So if you don't get to go to Comic-Con, you live in Columbus, Ohio, go check out Godzilla. I guarantee you'll like it, especially if you've never seen the original cut. It's a far different film.
Yes, and did it say which theater in Columbus, Ohio?
Oh yes, okay. I'm sorry. You know what? I completely skipped the theaters here. Okay, so
it's okay. I ask because for those who know, I am a Buckeye, so Columbus, Ohio holds near and dear to my heart. But I was born in Portland, Oregon.
The irony of
and
irony.
I do love New York because it's a city that if I can constantly fly to every other weekend, I would. But I am curious to know which theater in Columbus, Ohio.
In Columbus, it's at the Wexner Center for the Arts.
Okay, it's
like a film junkie kind of place, like a film society kind of forum.
It is.
Okay.
It is, and it's also, if I am not mistaken, it's on the Ohio State campus.
Well, shocking. There you go. Okay, so for the New York run, it's at the Film Forum. For Santa Fe, it's at the Jean Cocteau Cinema. I'm probably destroying that name as I normally do. Or Jean Cocteau Cinema. It's yeah. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that before I mumble it even more. Portland, it's gonna be at the Hollywood Theater. At Seattle, it's at the SIFF Cinema Uptown. For Houston, it's at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston, and then in Kentucky, it's at Kentucky Theater. Literally, that's what it's at. There's a Kentucky Theater in Kentucky, so that's currently where you can find the picture when it's on its run. You can go to rialtopictures.com/Godzilla, and it'll give you the deets, as they say, for everything. So, but they have a very good print, and I would definitely recommend if you're in any of those areas to go see it. So, if anything, it'll get the taste buds warmed up for the eventual main course that will be the legendary film. On that note, I want to bring up this thing real quick too. In other news related to that, because the movie's coming out, obviously people are going to be jumping in on the merchandising bandwagon. A bunch of the older films are getting re-released on Blu-ray for the first time.
Yay, Blu-ray! Until Ultra HD comes out, or 4D, whatever that thing is called.
You know what? I'm sticking with Blu-ray. I don't need Ultra 4 HD. It's as real as it needs to be for me anymore. My eyes aren't noticing anything different with the super high def. And if someone comes to me and says, "Oh yeah, I notice a huge difference," you're a goddamn liar, and you know it too. You just want to be one of those cool bastards that think that it's like, "Oh yeah, much more better." My eyesight, I see things. You know how the brain takes 0.4 seconds to process everything. Mine only takes like 2.4, so that's how it is. Go to hell. So, Section 23 Films, who's a label that deals with a lot of foreign films, they have opened up a new international label called Kraken Releasing, and they have picked up 3 films that currently were originally held by Sony during their whole licensing with Godzilla back in the early 2000s. So, they will be issuing for the first time on Blu-ray ever, Ibra, Horror of the Deep, otherwise known as Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster over here. I'm looking at the details of it. It will include the Japanese track and then the English dub track. So you have at least that coming. Any other additional extras I don't have in front of me at the moment, so I'm just going off what I got. Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which is also Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, which I guarantee everyone has seen it that's listened to this, but if you haven't, this is not only the weirdest goddamn Godzilla film that is out there, it's just a weird fucking movie in general. It is truly a product of the 70s, and it is a trip to see. And the beauty about this one, I do believe that the original Sony release of the DVD did not have the AIP dub on it, and they had the Toho International dub. And I might be wrong, I haven't pulled out my copy in a while, but I do recall that Save the Earth, the song that they sing in the beginning of it, was not included on that original DVD. So I'm hoping that this one has that. I don't know yet. It doesn't say which dub it has. Someone will
No, that film made me feel very disturbed as a
It
child.
is a weird. It's really a movie not for kids, even though there's a like a fat kid that's one of the main characters. It is a weird movie. Ironically, for those not in the know, the director Yoshimitsu Banno, who directed this film, who was never allowed to direct another Godzilla movie after that, he's partially responsible for getting the legendary film off the ground. Because after Toho kind of closed the door on the series after Final Wars, Banno has been kind of knee deep in IMAX stuff, and before IMAX really became the IMAX we know today, he was trying to push the medium into like more mainstream, and he was trying to create original stuff, and he wanted to do an IMAX Godzilla short film. Now, up until like 8 years ago, IMAX only held about an hour's worth of film on their platter. So that's why a lot of those IMAX films you saw were nature films or docs that were under an hour, but they were real heavy in the 3D and gimmickry and stuff. So he wanted to do a 45-minute Godzilla film, and it was going to be a sequel to Godzilla vs. Smog Monster. Toho granted him the rights, and the original film kind of fell through. It was going to be called Godzilla 3D to the Max, which sounds like the worst 80s title in the world. It's a very interesting. We'll go into it in another episode. It's definitely going to be one of those. It's going to be for an episode of failed projects that never got off the ground, but they were real weird and could be resurrected at any point and still be interesting. But because he held the rights, I believe that I don't know who took to what, but he and his producer managed to hook up with Legendary, and that's how part of the reason Legendary acquired the rights. And I do believe that they're listed as executive producers on the new film. They might have gotten their name taken off, but I don't think so. As far as all the press material I've seen, they're still on there, and it's all because of that failed IMAX film, and going back to him directing Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, which is just a fucking weird movie in general. If you partake in any mind-altering activities, that is definitely something to do. Do that and sit down and watch this film. It is just a weird fucking trip. And then finally, Godzilla vs. Gigan is coming on to Blu-ray, which, as far as I know, has never been on Blu-ray either. None of these have been on Blu-ray, but this is another. This is a real weird film too. The 70s were an odd time for Godzilla. Before the Mechagodzilla movies. The couple of films after Destroy All Monsters are just a weird hodgepodge of some stuff. It's like no one knew what the hell they were doing back then, and they were kind of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what stuck, and it created this weird goulash. And ironically, these are the Godzilla films that people know the most because they were on TV the most during like the 70s and 80s. So these films are part of the reason why Godzilla has the reputation that he has today. It's because of these weird fucking films. So Gigan is up there because it deals with cockroach aliens, it has a Godzilla tower, and Godzilla and Gillis talk to each other in this weird kind of language that sounds like a record spun backwards so you can hear the voice of Satan talk to you. Again, it will be when we delve into these films individually. This is going to be a fun one to delve into. But this also has the English and Japanese language, which I do believe that the original Sony release had on it as well. So there you go. Some new Blu-rays. And on that same note, Universal is haphazardly throwing out King Kong vs. Godzilla and King Kong Escapes, the two Toho Kong films that they did on Blu-ray. They're pretty much the ports of the original DVDs they put out back in 2005 for the King Kong release. So you could double dip if you want, but you're pretty much getting the same thing. And I got a feeling that the Blu-rays probably won't be any better than your current standard DVDs. So buy at caution, if you will.
I think some people who really, really like Blu-rays will still get it anyways.
Yeah. Well, they're fairly
because
cheap.
you see their shelf. Mm-hmm. We are the type of people who will have all of our Blu-rays on top, mm-hmm. all our regular DVDs on the bottom, mm-hmm. and then you're going to have that one friend that somehow goes through your stuff and go, "Oh, I didn't know you have WALL-E twice." Yeah. And then you're like, "Oh no, but WALL-E's in Blu-ray, mm-hmm. and there's regular WALL-E." Yeah. Even though, if you really watch some of them, I don't know about Wall-E, but for some of them, it's like you said, the same. It just all depends on the quality and how it was, remastered and everything.
A lot of older films I don't bother to revisit on Blu-ray unless they offer me something really primo with the special features, or I know for a fact they went through and cleaned up, and the previous edition available had like a poor transfer. The very few Blu-ray double dips that I own are the Jurassic Park trilogy, Back to the Future, and I got a couple of like Good, the Bad, the Weird. I own them both Blu-ray and standard because I bought an import originally, and the Blu-ray offered me a cleaner translation. So that's pretty much how I do it. And I pretty much buy newer Blu-ray films or maybe animation on Blu-ray because, say what you will, yeah, they'll clean it up, but I kind of like a little grain with my old films. That's just how they were, and you're not really high def. Maybe is not meant for practical effects of older films because it kind of shows a little bit of the flaws. If that's your thing, bully for you. But for me, I'd rather keep the illusion alive, if you will.
Right. No, I completely what you mean. I don't need to see Dorothy and Toto 3D in Ultra HD. Mm-hmm. It also doesn't make me feel like I'm watching a classic film.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't need it like really grainy to remind me that I was born recently, but I do need it to at least, have the quality that it was meant to be. But I understand retouching and remastering and adding some color, which they did for Little Mermaid recently. But, you don't need to have it super, super awesome, like up to date with modern technology.
Yeah. So, and that's why I stick to my more recent films. All right. Well, we have gone about an hour and a half, so I think that should do it for us for this week. We now that everything's set, we should be back on a more normal schedule, and we have a lot of things planned for our loyal listeners, all 25 of them right now. But hopefully, you like the show enough, you spread it out there, you tell a friend who tells a friend. And they tell two friends, and so on and so forth. Jessica, could you tell the good people, though, when they're not listening to our podcast, where else they can find us?
They can find us on Facebook with under the Kaiju Kingdom podcast, where you can bother us, and to the wonderful, wonderful hard work of Chris, who's constantly updating with new stuff, and I'm just the one clicking like and commenting. But also over at Twitter, we are Kaiju Kingdom Podcast. If actually I may be incorrect, Chris may have to double check for me. And also, but we are also on Tumblr, which is the Kaiju Kingdom Podcast. Which also we have a Tumblr. So for those, I had someone privately inbox me and asked me if we had a site. We don't have an actual site up. But, I guess if enough people are asking, we can always, Chris and I can always come together and wrangle together a site for us.
Well, in the meantime, the temporary host site is panzercrush.com, which is an old site of mine that's being repurposed for the use for the Kaiju Kingdom podcast right now. As we progress, we will be up on iTunes and Stitcher and all those. We just kind of got to bank a couple more episodes. That's just how the podcast industry works. But just bear with us. We will get to that point very soon. And on that note, Jessica, where can they find your work outside of the Kaiju Kingdom podcast?
I'm actually on thecomicbookgirl.com and girlongeek.com. And you can find me there, and from there, under contacts, you will find all the wonderful places I spread myself around online, social media-wise. I'm like, I hope a less criminal version of Justin Bieber. I do have, Instagram, Vine, and everything, and you can find me through Twitter, through both of those sites. And Chris, where can we find you?
I'm the co-editor of a site called therealmcast.com, where I do a bulk of my work over there. I host 2 podcasts on that site. One, as we affectionately call the regular show, which is just the Realmcast podcast, and a weekly show called Take Two, where my co-editor and I, George Cordero, sit down and talk about the minutia of pop culture news that week. So that's our regular shows, and then we have an abundance of other shows on there. We do a breakdown show for The Walking Dead right now called The Rundown Walking Dead, and we also do one for Arrow as well called The Rundown Arrow, and we have a comic book podcast called The Comics Unchained, which is run by my protege and good friend Sergio Sanchez. So you can check all that out there at therealmcast.com. And you can always download us on panzercrush.com, which I should be getting around to kind of making that site a little more pleasant to the eye pretty soon. So stick around, and hopefully in a couple weeks we might I might start working on a Kaiju Kingdom podcast site. So just it's a matter of finances right now at this point. So do stick with us.
Also, for many people, yes, do stick with us. Many people are asking about iTunes.
Again, as point out, iTunes requires a certain. They have a standard that we got to live up to first. So once we get a couple more episodes banked and we're on a regular schedule, we will be up on iTunes. So that way, your feed will get our delicious voices automatically laid down for you. Without having to click any buttons.
So thank you, everybody, for listening. Friend us, tweet us, come be our friend, or bother us, or be a neutral person like Switzerland claimed that they were. And just comment, email us. Also, we also do have an email, which is the Kaiju Kingdom Podcast at gmail.com. And you guys can always ask us what we think, give us show suggestions. Ask us, why isn't Jessica taller? I don't know. I tried. I ate a lot of food as a kid.
Or you can say it's like, hey, Chris, shut up and let the girl talk a little more.
No, although I think Chris has wonderful episodes also planned where I will be doing a lot of the talking, so you guys are going to be able to hear my voice for days and days. But yes, anyways, find all ways to communicate with us, and we will definitely get back to you sooner rather than later.
All right, well, that will do it for us for this week. So until next time, see you.